Thompson from the Committee on Homeland Security. We'll allow Mr. Thompson a moment. Chairman Green, Ranking Member Thompson, thank you very much for being here today. Chairman Green, I welcome your testimony.
Chairman Cole, Ranking Member McGovern, thank you for the opportunity to testify on HRS 863. For nearly a year, the committee conducted comprehensive investigation into the causes, costs, and consequences of our border crisis, producing 7 separate reports totaling more than 400 pages. Our members visited multiple sectors of the southwest border and heard from law enforcement and everyday Americans affected by this crisis. We held multiple hearings with a variety of witnesses, including former senior DHS enforcement officials, states' attorneys general, as well as victims of Secretary Mayorkas' crisis. Impeachment is a tool the framers wrote into the Constitution to deal with the gravest situations, like the one we have today, where the lawless actions of a cabinet secretary have led to the chaos and destruction across our land. Our investigation and impeachment proceedings resulted in 2 articles of impeachment. Article 1 charges him with willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law, and Article 2 charges him with the breach of public trust. It is unambiguous that Secretary Mayorkas has refused to comply with federal immigration laws and acted in a manner subversive to the rule of law. He has threatened the integrity of our constitutional system and imperiled the Congress, a co-equal branch of government, by ordering DHS employees to violate laws passed by Congress, thus violating the separation of powers. And he has implemented a catch-and-release scheme violating detention requirements and misused parole authority. We've also seen Secretary Mayorkas breach the public trust, violating his statutory duty to control and guard the border. He willfully failed to replace the enforcement initiatives he abandoned with viable alternatives, and he knowingly made false statements about the consequences of his refusal to comply with the law. Having exhausted all other options, and as suggested by United States versus Texas, Congress is the only avenue of accountability remaining, and we are compelled to act. I want to address just a few claims you'll no doubt hear from the Democrats today, claims that are false and easily disproven. One of the reasons I'm presenting these articles and not the chairman of the Judiciary Committee is because on November the 13th, 2023, 201 Democrats, every Democrat voting that day, voted to refer articles of impeachment to our committee. Additionally, we gave Secretary Mayorkas multiple opportunities since August to defend his record. Each time, he delayed and evaded. We ultimately offered to take written testimony from him. He decided to respond at 4:48 a.m. on the day of our markup. The lack of seriousness with which he takes these proceedings is shocking. Third, the House Republicans have consistently voted to substantially increase funding for CBP. H.R. 2, the border security bill the House passed last year, funds the increase of roughly 3,000 Border Patrol agents, more than double what the White House wants in its supplemental. Don't let the Democrats' false claims distract you from the truth. And the truth is that Secretary Mayorkas refused to comply with the law, even after seeing the devastating consequences. The truth is that Secretary Mayorkas broke the public trust by claiming that the border was secure, even while drug cartels took control of large swaths of the southwest border. And the truth is that Secretary Mayorkas has chosen to ignore the suffering of the American people and doubled down on his decision to keep our border open to deadly drugs, dangerous criminals, and unknown national security threats. Secretary Mayorkas' job is to secure the homeland and enforce the law. He's failed to do either of those things and must be held accountable. What is the point of us being here? What's the point of Congress if we allow the executive branch to ignore the laws we pass? If we do not hold officials accountable, then there are no longer any checks and balances. That's not a constitutional republic. That's the road to tyranny. One last point. My colleagues across the aisle assert this doesn't rise to the level of impeachment. There's a direct analogy here with the impeachment articles against Richard Nixon. Nowhere in the Nixon impeachment article is there any reference to a crime committed by the president himself. Instead, Article 2 of the Nixon impeachment refers to Nixon's acting in ways, quote, not authorized by law, end quote, and in ways that constituted, quote, unlawful activities, end quote. And that's exactly what Secretary Mayorkas has done. Also, Article 1 of the Nixon impeachment charged Nixon with, quote, making false and misleading statements, end quote, and, quote, false and misleading testimony, end quote. And they conclude he, quote, acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, end quote. Again, that's exactly what Secretary Mayorkas has done. The case is compelling.